Hello, 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 hello. Hello. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello. Okay, great. Thanks, Agron. Hello, hello, welcome. I think the people that already posted some questions, uh, Artinio and Fourpass. I will start answering questions shortly, so if you have any of your own questions, please do post them inside of the chat. I don't know if I'll be able to address every single question, but I will do my best. Uh, Before we start, you have a really strange question. Okay, as long as it has to do with Wix or Velo or web development in general, I'd be happy to give my 2 cents. Um, yeah, so I'm just getting ready here for the live stream. It's been maybe about 3 months since our last one, so stuff has changed. I don't recall, did Wix Studio exist during our last live stream? It may have not been around yet, or it just came out, and they have been making some serious strides in terms of improving the developer experience. I'm curious to know who here has tried out Studio. Have you guys tried out Studio yet? Um, if so, what do you think about the developer experience? Um, yeah, I see we now have 4 people watching, so that's good. That's a good start. I know it's quite early in the States, and it might even be too early on the West Coast for most people. But I currently am actually in Japan, in Tokyo, so yeah, this is about as late as I want to be starting, as I want to be starting a live stream. It is currently 11 p.m., so we'll see how long I survive. For those of you who didn't notice, back to the topic of Studio. So if we head into code mode or dev mode, you'll notice that the IDE in Studio has actually moved. So when they first launched Studio, the IDE was over here, so kind of on the left side. And there were several issues with that. I know that I brought it up with the Wix team. There may have been other developers that gave feedback as well. And it's really cool to see that they acted on that feedback. Um, in addition, well, of course, Studio has the new built-in IDE, which you can go to from right over here. So if you click this to code in the IDE, it'll open up like, hello, Artinio from Finland. So yeah, so it'll open up a kind of VS Code based, web-based IDE, which may be more comfortable for a lot of the people who are maybe coming from the development world and they're new to Wix, or people who like have 2 screens. But yeah, we kind of, myself and I think some other developers as well who might be a little more familiar with Wix and the native Wix IDE or the in-editor IDE. Um, Random question: how many skills you have actually? That's a very general question. I don't know exactly what you classify as skills, but I can do a bunch of things. I can't juggle though. Um, Yeah, so basically the IDE was over here on the side, and it created some issues, UX issues in terms of using the IDE. It was kind of buggy, and you also couldn't view kind of the side panel, like for example, going into, let's say, databases and viewing the IDE at the same time. So that created some issues, and I'm happy to see that they finally moved it back to the bottom. If you hate that move, then you know who to blame, or at least one of the people to blame. But I think overall it's a positive. I still think that this whole area could be improved a little more. I'm not sure why they chose this layout specifically as opposed to what they had in Editor X or in the classic editor. I think it was working, what they had. Um, but yeah, anyway, that's like a small update to Wix Studio that I thought I would mention because it's a pretty big change in an editor that was launched recently. Um, one more thing that I wanted to address before we actually hop in and I start answering questions. I really appreciate. I see that there are a couple questions building up. Thank you, Code Crush. Hi, Suman. Hi, Raphael. Thank you all for joining. So just one last kind of community announcement. So like recently I was doing a consultation and I was asked about resources to learn Velo. And that's actually a great question. I personally am a very autodidactive person. So I tend to learn out of necessity and out of projects, which I think is a great way to learn web dev. And there are some tools out there for learning Velo. The first thing that I would recommend to somebody who's starting on their Velo journey is, first of all, get a good grip of JavaScript. One great tool for learning JavaScript is Free Code Camp, for those of you who have heard of it or haven't heard of it. It's as in the name, it is free, and they don't only teach JavaScript. They have a few really good courses that you can check out with regard to web development and other languages as well, if I'm not mistaken, and other skills from that world set, from the development engineering world in general. So that would be a great place to start. And then once you're feeling pretty good about JavaScript, so there are other tools as well. So you could check out the courses that are available on the Wix site. I will be completely honest, I have not done these courses myself. I've taken a look at them. There are also several tutorials. And since these are created by Wix, I should hope that they are to a certain extent good. But then again, it doesn't look like they are very encompassing. A total of maybe 3 hours or so. So there's definitely a lot more to Velo than what's in this course. I also came across online this course by Code Academy. Again, I haven't done it myself, but Code Academy, I've gone through other courses of Code Academy, so I know that they're a reputable platform. So I imagine that what they've done here is good. Just by kind of rifling through it, it seems thorough, but also not. Yeah, they talk about a few basic concepts here, but I don't know how deep it really goes in terms of some of the more advanced things that you'd want to do. And it's not a very long course from what I saw. There's also another course by someone called the Wix Wiz. No, I'm just kidding. But there is a course that I'd released several months ago, which is now available also on Udemy. It also does not encompass all of Velo at the moment. It's focused on the basics and front end. So it covers also JavaScript, and also Velo concepts. And it's very project oriented. So you really learn also through lessons, but also by doing. And I wanted to kind of show my appreciation to the people who came to join this live stream today, because I know it's kind of the middle of the week. It might be morning for some people, it might be late for some people. So I do appreciate you all stopping by. So I did create a coupon code for the people joining the live. So if you want, you can use the coupon code "We're Live" to purchase the course, and you'll get it at a discounted price. I can put the link here kind of in the chat for those of you who want to check it out. You're more than welcome. And one other place that you can go if you're encountering issues with your attempts at Velo or developing on Wix is, of course, our forum on the Wix Wiz website. I see a lot of people writing comments on the videos on YouTube, and I really appreciate that. I try to address as many questions as I can, but sometimes questions can get quite specific and they lack the context and detail that would be needed to give the appropriate answer. So I tend to answer questions in the comments where I think that I can answer based on the information that I have and that the answer will be beneficial to the greater viewership. Whereas things that are more specific, you can always reach out to us for our services, or you can head over to the forum and post it there, where either myself or even other members of the community can also help out, and you can provide all the details regarding your specific question. So that's just a little bit general for people who are thinking of starting their Velo journey, who have already started their Velo journey and need help. Those are a few resources that I can offer. And now that we've done that, we can hop in and start answering some questions here from the chat. So let me go ahead and take a look and see what we have here. So I'm going to be starting from the top. And so the first question that I see here, which is slightly being blocked by the question that I've pinned on top. So let me unpin that message. Awesome. So first question we have for tonight or today or this morning is from Artinio. And the question is, can I create my own design for a product card in my Wix store? I looked at the options for ready-made designs, but I want to change, for example, the color of the button. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and assume that you are talking about not the product page itself, but the Wix store. And before I talk about that, I'm going to turn off my heater because I'm actually boiling. So just give me one moment. I'm going to go ahead. And that should be turning off soon. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that you are talking about, yeah, so not the individual product page, but the store itself. So if we go over here to shop, and here I'm in the classic editor, I have Studio open here as well. We won't be talking about Editor X today because if you don't know, Editor X is going to be migrating into Studio shortly. So I don't really recommend, even though I think Editor X is more stable than Studio, I don't recommend starting projects in Editor X at the moment because it'll just be migrated over to Studio and you're opening yourself up to potential migration issues. Not that there necessarily will be, but you know. Yeah, so if there are any questions that are specifically to Studio, just let me know and we can check it out in the Studio editor as well. But I'm going to go ahead and assume that the question from Artinio is about this page right here. Artinio, first of all, you can yell at me if I'm not saying your name right, but also you can confirm that if that's, or deny that if that's not true. But yeah, so in terms of editing how things look on this page, in terms of buttons, I'm assuming like if we have an add to cart button. So we have the settings here, and we have here layout, and let me see if my zoom in is working there. Let's see, zoom in. Oh, because I'm not actually recording. Oh, there. I did zoom in, I think. Oh, it's a little distracting because yeah, there's the view inside of, you'll forgive me. This is the first time that I'm try zooming out. Uh-oh, I think I created an issue here. Now I'm stuck on zoomed in. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I tried to, sorry, I don't, this is the first time that I tried doing this during the live, so that's why I created a bit of an issue here. Let me see if there's anything that I can do about that. Uh-oh, you'll have to forgive me. Talk amongst yourselves in the meanwhile. Um, I think I know how to fix this. One second. Yeah, for those of you who are OBS experts, maybe you, let's see. Let's see, reload risk. Uh, oh no. Oh no. Let me try canceling this window capture. I'll add a new one. Okay, okay. Seems a little more promising. Yeah, that's what this is really live. If anybody had a doubt, this is definitely live. Okay, awesome. So I won't be trying that again, just for the sake of not screwing this up. But yeah, so except for the basic settings that you can do here in terms of design, you also have the option, if you would want to go fully custom. So I think I demonstrated that in a tutorial which kind of followed the custom product page tutorial. So if you look on the channel for the video which explains how to navigate between your shop page and the custom product pages. So I addressed that as one of the solutions, but just to mention it again here. So you can create a page on your site, which would essentially act as the shop. So let's go ahead and add in, sorry, from over here, site menu, add in a page, add in a blank page. And I'm not going to do the whole thing now because there is some, work involved here, but you can do custom shop, let's say. And fundamentally, it's all going to be done through a repeater. So we'll have to go in here and find a list and then grab that. Let's say add in one of these empty lists. And then we can add in an image. Let's add in this image, add it into the repeater. And then essentially connect this repeater to our products. And you could do this via no code as well. So for example, if we go to CMS, add the CMS to site, and we should be able to access, let's see, start by adding content. So let's add a collection. It's interesting how Wix like only exposes certain functionalities of the site once you do take certain actions. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. We're experiencing some technical difficulties. I think this strain of the live stream is being felt. Yeah, so one way to actually circumvent all of those, like Wix kind of dumbs things down because they're assuming that they assume that you don't know anything until you prove it, kind of. So like until you add the CMS, they assume that you don't know what a CMS is and what a CMS would do, and they kind of limit your access to certain parts of the editor and the dashboard based on the actions that you take. But if you go into dev mode, that pretty much gets rid of all of those limitations and kind of really exposes the full Wix experience to you. I don't know anything that's actually hidden after you go into dev mode, so I haven't experienced that. So let's kind of go back. Let's go back to our custom shop page that we added in here. And so there's essentially two ways that we can now connect this to the data of our shop. And if we go here into our databases, which used to be called something else, they recently changed that. And you can see here that within Wix stores, we actually have access to all of these collections. And one of these collections is the products collection, which has all of the data that's being displayed inside of the Wix stores app. And you can essentially go ahead and use that data on your live site and connect it to your own kind of custom designs. And as I said, there's two ways to approach that. So one would be by a um, adding in a data set, which usually you would have access to over here. So let's say, okay, start from scratch. And I'm just adding a completely random collection to the site so that it opens up that option for me. And data sets is actually one of the things that, in terms of user experience in the editor, works quite differently between the Classic and Wix Studio. So with the Classic, see now that see it exposed these buttons here after I added a collection. So I'm going to go here and add a content element, and I'm going to add a data set. And then this data set I should be able to connect to that collection. So if I go here to products, and then I can go ahead and connect this repeater. And this is all no code. So go ahead and now I can connect this image, let's say, to main media. Yeah. And then here you see it's displaying the media from the products. And you can use this also to navigate to the products. Where you might encounter some challenges is, let's say, adding to cart, or like quick view and stuff like that. So depending on how complex you want this storefront to be, you may eventually reach a blocker with this no code. I think there is like an add to cart button as well that you can add in. Since I'm very code oriented, I actually may have like a kind of a knowledge gap in terms of some of the no code offerings that Wix has. And there's just so much in Wix that it's impossible not to learn new things every day. It's like a huge platform. But if I'm not mistaken, there was some kind of add to cart button that I came across. Let's see, cart. That's one thing that I like also about the Classic, that you can kind of search. Oh, here, add to cart button. Let's see what this does. Add to cart, settings. Oh, so you would have to connect it to a specific product. So that wouldn't be so relevant. Yeah, it would be cool if you could, whoops. It would be cool if you could put it in a repeater and then connect that, but that's not possible. So for example, to do add to cart from this repeater, you would need to use some Velo code. And to know which code to use, that would be here through the API reference. So you'd have to look for the API that allows you to add things to your cart, and follow those instructions. It's starting to get a little complex, so I don't know if I want to dive into that right now, because there are already resources on the channel which can help with that. For example, the custom product page tutorial, you can learn from there how to add things to a cart. Um, and so what I demonstrated here is one way, using no code, but you could also essentially run a data query here inside the IDE and query that collection for the data from the products, and then populate the repeater using code as well. So that was a rather long answer for Artinio regarding the design, mostly because I completely got fumbled with the OBS. Yeah, so if there are any follow-up questions to that, I'd be happy to answer them, but I'm going to head over to the next question. Are there any plans for new videos about OpenAI Wix solutions? So I did release about 2 months ago, I think it was. What was it, December? I think it was throughout the month of December. I released a completely new series about OpenAI. So first of all, if you haven't seen that yet, I do recommend checking it out. And I do kind of a refresh of some of the things that we talked about already. So chat completions. I have a new video in there about streaming with a fix. And I also address some of the newer APIs, such as Assistance API, speech to text, text to speech, all that. If there's something that's not included in that series that you still want to see, you can comment on one of those videos, and let me know, or comment here inside the live, and I'll take it into consideration, though I think I won't be doing another AI video for a short while, just to kind of give people a little more Wix content. After all, I did do a full month of AI, so I think it's time for a break. Okay, so next question. Agron. Okay, so my client has a weird request for online food ordering. He wants the buyers to click on a product and then click Next, select Toppings, click Next, and select Drink. This goes for 10 pages. Cool. So I don't see it like, oh, okay. So I see a follow-up. I'm gonna skip down. I see the follow-up question here. I tried CMS approach with Repeater, but it's not as convenient as Wix Restaurant app. Is there any way I can customize the Wix Restaurant app? So that's a great question. I have not done a customization of the Wix Restaurant app, and if I'm not mistaken, there is no API for it. And if there's no API, if you don't find an API for it here inside of the Velo reference, then unfortunately that means that it currently most likely cannot be customized. I also recommend just doing kind of a Google search, and usually that will either lead you to the documentation or it will lead you to a page where people are requesting that, and you can kind of click the heart button and say, oh, I request that feature, and then maybe like next year it might happen. But yeah, I unfortunately don't think that the Wix restaurant app can be customized using Velo code. I may be wrong. If somebody here has done that before, feel free to write in the comments, but I don't see it in the documentation, and I don't have personal experience doing that kind of customization. Um, okay, so I'm going to go to the next question, which is Suman. Hello, Suman from India. I am following you since long. I have made a travel website, but it becomes very slow when I fetch data from multiple data set. Is there any plugin to make it faster? So yes, fetching data takes time, and it can slow down the UI of your page a little bit. But in general, I would recommend there's no plugins in Wix, so Wix doesn't have any plugins. Anything that you're doing to make your website faster in terms of how you're fetching the data would be fetching the data in a different way. So one thing you should double check is if you're using pagination. So for example, are you fetching more data than you necessarily need initially? That's often something that can slow things down. Um, so really only initially fetching the data that the user really critically needs at that moment, and then allowing the user to load more data later on if they have a need. It could be that there's also some inefficiencies in your code and how you're fetching the data. And it could be that you're also misinterpreting why the speed is slow. Wix websites tend to slow down if you have very many pages on your site. There could also be other things slowing down your site, like if you're using a lot of fonts, if you're using, very large images or video. So just make sure that you are sure that that is the reason that your site is slowing down, and there might be something else behind it as well. Um, but speed is definitely a pain point in Wix. Not specifically with the fetching of data. I don't think that it takes very long to do a basic query to a collection relative to like industry standard. Um, so if you feel like that's slowing your site down, then maybe there's something that can be fixed there in terms of efficiency. It would be hard to say without taking an actual look at your project, though. So that would be a good thing to share to the forum, for example. If you want to share some of your code, we can take a look at it and maybe give some insight. So that's for Suman, and thank you for following for a long time. I appreciate it. Um, okay, Raphael, how to connect external database with internal external database. Okay, so that is a good question. So external databases, Wix supports the connection of some external databases. I don't know exactly what database you are connecting. Let me see if you wrote something again down here. I don't. see, I don't see anything that you wrote again. So just to go over basic external database connection, again, not something that I've specifically done before, but let me try and remember where that is. Maybe it's here in databases. That would make sense. Yeah, so you have this option over here. This is inside of Wix Classic. So add external database. And let's see where it would be here inside of Studio. Yeah, here, add external database as well. And once you click that, so you're given an option for several different databases. So basically the way that this works is that your data is hosted on a third party, and Wix has designed kind of like a connector where you can use the native Wix APIs in order to access that data through the third party. So Wix has a few pre-built ones, and you also have the option to kind of customize your own if your data isn't being hosted by one of these three providers. Um, there are detailed instructions for how to do this. Connect external database Wix. Shouldn't be hard to find. Yeah. So these are the instructions. This is the recipe. So I would definitely recommend reading this if that's something that you're trying to do and following the instructions. If it's one of those three providers that you saw over here, then you'll have an easier job. If it's custom, then it might require quite a bit of work to get that done. That's one direction to go. Another direction that you can go is, instead of trying to integrate using this Wix solution, you can just access the data directly through the APIs of your third party, wherever your data is stored. So if the data that you're accessing is being accessed in a very specific way, like okay, I need to pull data once or twice throughout my website and very specific data from whatever database I'm storing in, then it might be easier just to build out kind of a simple API call here in the back end of your Wix website, which fetches that specific data, and then you're just done. And then you have that access to that data, and you can use it within your Wix website however you need in your front end. Yeah, that's how I would go if I didn't need like a fully encompassing solution and really very much, not very much, but a lot of flexibility in terms of retrieving data from the external database. So that is to answer Raphael's question. Agron, that's just a follow-up on the original question. So we're down to PopMop1234. Out of all the website builders out there, how did you decide on Wix? So that's a great question. I first came to Wix building a personal project of mine before I learned kind of full stack web development and coding. And why did I decide on Wix for that project? Probably because I saw just a bunch of ads on YouTube, and it looked cool. I think that in retrospect, it was a good choice. I have since tried several of the other options out there, at least kind of on a very preliminary basis. So whether it's WordPress or Squarespace, taking a peek at Webflow, I've touched Bubble before, and I think that Wix provides the best combination of very, very easy entry point and really almost infinite possibilities in terms of flexibility. So it's like really easy to use relative to other platforms for somebody who has really zero knowledge. But if you want to take it further and further and further, you really can go quite far, and the tools are there. Obviously, there are, just like any platform, there are also, some things that Wix is not the best at. But I just think in terms of the flexibility of the drag and drop editor, the out-of-the-box business solutions and kind of what Velo provides you in terms of extending the functionality of your website, it's there's a lot. It's I don't want to say a clear winner, but it's a winner. It's definitely something serious to be considered, and that is also why I tend to go that way professionally as well. So that's to answer that question, why out of all the web builders. But I think that there's some good competition out there and it's doing interesting things. Like for example, Webflow, I do appreciate that, that you can that there's less of that lock-in concept. I think it's a problem with a lot of website builders that essentially once you start building on that platform, then you're locked in. But platforms that allow you to completely export your site, as HTML, CSS, JavaScript, or who knows, maybe even React they let you. I don't know exactly what they let you do there, but um, that's a big plus because you're not locked in essentially, at least from a front end perspective. Um, okay, Farouk. Hi, Tan. Sorry for the delay. I've been out of the city due to work. We'll make the installments by Tuesday. No worries. No worries. Um, yeah, Farouk is considering one of the plans that we offer. So we offer like maintenance plans and development plans um, for people who need assistance with their websites. So Farouk is considering that. So I appreciate that. Code Crush. I'm populating the PDF with form data. And when I run this function, generate PDF URL, it's showing me an error in the backend. Client.merge template is not a function. Can you help me out? So I think that you are talking, if I'm not mistaken, about the original PDF generator API tutorial. And that's a great example of something that I would recommend posting to the forum, because I would really need to see the code. You also have, of course, the option to schedule a consultation via my website, and then we can kind of take a look at it together and see what might be going wrong. It could either be some kind of mistake in the code, even something as small as a typo. It could also be that something has changed in the API. So that tutorial was released, I want to say maybe even close to a year ago. So, things do change, especially with third parties. Like I can't guarantee that a third party API will always stay the same. Um, but this is the first time I'm hearing about that issue. Um, Generally, just taking a look at the error that you sent, I'll try to be as helpful as I can with the information that I have. So client.merge template is not a function. It means that merge template is not a function of that class client. So it probably means that that client is not defined. And if that's not defined, then it doesn't have that function that it's expecting to have. So either it is defined and merge template is not the correct function, or client is not defined, which means that take a look back in your code and see where you got that client from, and maybe it's not imported correctly or it's not defined correctly. That's pretty much as I could say, just based on that information. So I hope that gives some direction. And as I said, a consultation or the forum. Farouk, okay, I had a question about using download file URL in Wix Velo to download document, especially with viewing images, uh, especially with previewing images before inserting into the CMS. Cool. So to preview, I'm not sure exactly what you mean by previewing an image before inserting to the CMS. So that's actually, you're bringing up an interesting point, and that is something that I think I see some people confusing often. I'm not saying that's necessarily that you're confusing it, but I think it's something worth mentioning. Is that there's a difference between storage and CMS. So when when we're talking about storage, so Wix has something called the Media Manager. Okay, and this is where we'll have files that we upload to our Wix website or access to just kind of like some generic Wix media. So if I go ahead and I upload a file to my computer here, a file, sorry, from my computer. So let's say, let's upload this thumbnail from one of the previous tutorials. So now this file is being, or when it completes the upload, this file is going to be stored here inside of the Media Manager. It's stored on Wix. And that's the storage, that's the actual file. And if we add this file to a collection in the CMS, so for example, if I go here to the example collection that I just created, and I go ahead and I add an image reference. So if I go ahead and I add here image, just call that image, and then I add here image, and then I can choose an image from the media manager. So I have this autofill image that I uploaded already, and I can add this item to the CMS, and all this is essentially doing is referencing that image via a link. This is actually a URL. Even though it's showing you an image here, it's actually a URL to that image within Wix. So it's not like the image is in your CMS, the image is in the storage. And the CMS is just referencing that image. And anytime that I reference that image from any of my collections or even from my website, it's all referencing that same one file that's inside the Media Manager. So that's something that's important to conceptually understand, because I see people sometimes confusing the two, and yeah, like, oh, I want to upload this image to my collection, but there's two steps here to every process. So one is uploading to storage, and one is referencing in the collection. So that's just one thing to point out there. And yeah, so Farouk, if you want to kind of clarify what your question is about download file, and also with regard to the images and previewing, if you want to ask a more specific question, I can try and address that. Um, but yes, you have APIs that can allow you to download the files. And to preview an image, you could just access that image inside of the storage, but you'd have to have some kind of way of knowing which image from the storage you want to be accessing. So that I would need a little more context about your project to answer. And you're also waiting for the intermediate course. Thank you. I know a lot of people are. I do plan on making it. The big question is what to include, because there is really just so much information. So I really have to be there's a lot of pruning that needs to be done in terms of deciding, okay, what information is course worthy and what information can people just infer once they have the basic tools. So it's quite a lot of effort to create the course, from my experience from the first one. So I really also want to be sure that there's a large audience for it, and that I can really kind of gather that critical information, that people need. But I do hope to do an intermediate course as well. Genius Pro, hi Ethan, longtime fan. Thank you very much. Two questions. Where am I located? Okay, so I am. What I say, what I say is I'm based in New York. Uh, that is, yeah, I'm based in New York, but I am currently in Japan. So that's why if you were trying to book a meeting with me, then you might see that the hours are like crazy. And that's because, yeah, I'm on the other side of the world to most people. But I will probably be back in New York in the near future. And then it might be a little easier, but generally based out of New York. To add to home screen pop-up from mobile browsers. Add to home screen pop-up from mobile browsers. So That's interesting. I think what you're referring to is the ability to let people kind of add like an app icon on mobile to access to kind of add the website as kind of like an app. Um, I would have to do a little more research about how that's done, to be honest. Um, I feel like that if you have an example of a website that does that, that would be awesome. I'd love to take a look. Um, I'm trying like I feel like that would require access to the actual mobile phone APIs, which I don't know if you have that through a website. Then again, maybe I'm overthinking it. I think it's a great question, and I would love to do more research on that and follow up. Um, if you want to post that to the forum, then I would love to follow up on that question. Also, if you have a few more details, just to make sure that I actually understand that question correctly, and I'm not kind of going off on a tangent. Artinio, okay, so I'm guessing I'm now I finally get to understand that I probably answered the first question correctly. So that's good to know, uh, or at least on point. And Jonathan, hello. With a query and HTML template that was created as a form field, can it be connected to a collection? Um, okay. I will try and answer what I think the question is. If you see that this is not what you had in mind, then please do let me know. So an HTML template, I'm guessing that you're putting into your site using embed. So for those of you who don't know, you have the ability to add custom HTML to your Wix website using embed code and embed HTML. And then essentially you can write HTML code here and it will display on your site. So for example, if I add here like an H1 and I say hello world, like very basic HTML, and then I just hit update here. So this will display, plain HTML hello world. And you can go pretty far with this. Like you can develop pretty advanced things here using these embeds. You can add CSS, you can add a script, and really make cool stuff. Um, so if I understand correctly, Jonathan is asking, so if they have some kind of form field here, so let's say, you have like an HTML input, and if you happen to be using this HTML embed, I definitely recommend writing your code somewhere else. So like writing it in CodePen or writing it in VS Code and then just pasting it here. This is not a code editor. This little thing here, like you will definitely make mistakes and like your code, it'll be very hard to write code here. So don't plan on writing your code in here. I'm just doing it now to kind of try and save time. So input, I think that should add an input. Let's see. Yeah. So let's say if you have an input like that here in HTML. So if somebody puts something here in this input, is there a way to then eventually get that data to a collection? So the answer is yes. And the way that this is done is using post message and on message. And that's the way to communicate between these HTML embeds and your Velo code on your Wix website. And I really actually remember this whole topic quite vividly from when I was a beginner uh, in Wix code in Velo, and just how foreign this whole thing seemed to me. Also because I didn't have a background in at that time at HTML and C at all. Um, so I definitely, if somebody's having trouble grasping it, like I could definitely appreciate that feeling. Um, but now in retrospect, like it's not really that complicated. Once you know what you're doing, I think I have a tutorial on the subject. Um, but maybe it's worth revisiting because I think it's a cool topic because it really opens up a whole world of things that you can do with Wix. But basically, just to give it like in a nutshell, so let's find this in the documentation. So we want to look for HTML element, and then here, so post message. And so this is to send a message to the HTML. So like, let's say I do something on the Wix side and I want to communicate that into the HTML. The reverse would be on message. So we would have to add essentially this code here inside of the HTML embed. So we'd have, let's say, a script here. I hope you can see this and I'm not blocking it with my face or something like that. Yeah. So we'd have like a script here. And then here within the script, we would have some JavaScript that looks like this. Here you want to put the URL of your site, or also you could just put a star and then it'll work. And this is going to be some kind of message, some kind of data. You can send string, you can send complex data as well, that you want to send to the Wix website. And then you can receive that message here on the Wix side using on message. So the HTML component on message. Uh, Obviously, you want this to be like HTML1, let's say. And then you receive the data and you can do stuff with it, which could include putting it into a collection. So for your specific use case, what you would want to do is to set up, oh, I don't think I saved the code, but sorry, one second. Yeah, is basically to set up some logic here using JavaScript that takes the value of the input and then passes it using this to the Wix website and then handling it with Velo to adding it to the collection. That's my answer to my understanding of your question, which I'm not sure that I 100% understood, but if not, let me know. Okay, so let's go to the next question. David Schönbaron, I think. I've never heard that last name before, so correct me if I mispronounced. Is there a way in code in Wix Studio to make it that when you add a product to the cart and it will open a small cart or shelf on desktop and just mark on mobile, not like the default to cart page? So yes, so basically, oh, well, okay. So add a product to the cart and it will open a small cart or shelf on desktop. Okay. So first of all, if you have a custom product page, then definitely yes. So we have a Wix API. Let's see, cart, mini cart. Let's see, mini cart. Yeah, so you have this API show mini cart, which essentially does the showing of the mini cart. So if you have a completely custom product page, then you can use this in combination with form factor. So form factor is an API which essentially allows you to detect if you're on desktop, mobile, or tablet. And then you can create different behaviors in Velo code based on the one you're in. So you could create logic that says, okay, if in desktop, do this, open mini cart. If in mobile, do um, some other behavior. I'm not sure I completely understand what you're looking for there on mobile, but some other more mobile appropriate behavior. Um, that is if you, so if you're doing completely custom product page, then that should be no problem at all. If it's a um, if it's a non-custom product page, then essentially we'd also have to have another stage where we disable the native behavior. So essentially preventing the mini cart from opening in any scenario. And we'd also have to be able to detect that something has been added to the cart. So that I have to double check if that's possible. Let's first see if we have an event that, let's see, on add to cart maybe. Yeah, awesome. So we do. So you have this event, which is on add to cart, and it runs when something's added to cart. So you could just use this event, and I'm assuming that you can disable the mini cart open through the settings uh, of the actual. Let me take a peek and see. We're talking about Wix Studio. Let's see, product page. Let's see, let's see. Hmm, how do we get to the settings here? Here, add to cart, settings. Yep. So let's say show check mark on button. Okay, so that will be the default behavior. And then using this on add to cart. So basically, why don't we show it? So basically what we do here is we'd have the onReady function, and then we can copy this boilerplate code here, let's say, and put that right over there. So here you'd have to have the name of the actual product page. So here it's called product page 1. So either you can change this to my product page or change this to product page 1. On cart on add to cart. And then here we're going to have, let me zoom in a little bit. I feel like this might be a bit small. So here what we'd have is we'd have the form factor. So let's go back and look for that form factor. Awesome. So we'd have to import Wix window front end. Get rid of all this. And then we'd say if Wix window front end dot form factor equals to desktop, then we'll open the mini cart. So to open the mini cart, we have to select the actual cart icon. So that would be this. And so we have this shopping cart. Yeah, typically I would change the names. Like I hate when there's a number inside of the ID. Like if there's only one, then it should just say product page, not product page 1. But since we're not, I'm just kind of trying to give a very quick example. I'm not really fixing it up as I would on an actual project. But here what we want to do is we want to show show mini cart. Let me go back. I always have the documentation open. Don't expect to know anything by heart. Let's see. Oh, sorry. No, so I didn't even need to select. It's actually import this. So import cart from Wix store front end. This we actually don't need to select this. Cart dot open show mini cart. And that might be a promise. Let me double check. Nope, it doesn't seem to be a promise. Awesome. So this code should pretty much do the trick. Um, let's see if we go to our home page. Do I have a menu here at all? Let me add in a menu. Manage menu. Main pages. Where's my shop page? Link, page, category page, let's say. I don't know. Okay, let's check out the live site. And yeah, so here if we add to cart now, so you see it opened it a little quickly actually, but it did open up the mini cart. And if you want, you can go. I'll share this link in the whoops. I'll add this link here, but like if you go to that link on mobile, let me know if the mini cart opens or not. But based on the code that I wrote, it should not open because like we set the settings not to open. But if it does open, let me know. We can debug. Um, awesome. So that is to answer the question. I'm very happy that that went smoothly. But that was a very typical Wix scenario because you rarely know the answers to these kinds of questions off the top of your head. Like, yes, as you build more in Wix, you'll have more familiarity with some of the APIs that you use more frequently. But you always need to do some research. Like, you're thinking, okay, is this possible? Let's go check. Let's see the APIs. Let's check out the forums. Let's search Google. Um, and by combining these different solutions together, often you can kind of concoct some magic potion that will make it work like you want. So I'm going to I see there are some repeat questions, not repeat questions, but some people who have asked more than one question. So I'm going to go down to give people who haven't asked a question yet a chance. And then if we have time, we currently finished the first hour of this live stream. I'm planning on doing one more hour. So if we have time uh, and we haven't completed the second hour yet, then I will go back to some of these questions that I see people asked, and I appreciate the questions. Um, so I'm going down to, uh, oh, great, it works. I'm happy. Um, you're very welcome. Okay, so Nestaz 1, does adding Velo code running above the fold hurt page loading performance, scroll trigger effects for header effects or behavior? That is a great question. Um, I I want to give a hesitant answer, and let me explain why this is kind of a complex question. So the way that Wix works is that your Velo code essentially runs twice. It runs once on the server side, and it runs once on the client side. So once the website's actually delivered, and Wix has certain logic set up based on which it can sometimes repopulate your page based on Velo code that's run on the server side. And I'm not 100% sure what the logic is about what runs and what is done on server side and what doesn't need to repeat on the client side. But I have seen clear places where it's obviously happening. And I know that this is something that happens because you can it sometimes can create issues. For example, if you just you write a line of code that inserts something into a database and you put it inside of the onReady function and you don't make that conditional on, let's say, a click of a button or something like that. You just put it as code that runs by default when your page loads. If you take a look at the collection after you load your page, it will actually insert twice. And that's because inserting once on the server side and once on the client side. Um, so considering that background, that the code runs on the server side, it potentially removes certain lag that Velo code might have on the client side, because the code has already run and some of the page has already been formed based on that running. Like for example, things collapsing and expanding and stuff like that. I've definitely seen that take effect on the server side already. So does does Velo code running above the fold hurt page loading performance? I can't give a yes or no answer. I think that having code on your page can delay certain things. Most of the Wix slowdowns are from bundled code that Wix sends along with your website that you have zero control over. Can code be written more efficiently from Velo, and can Velo code potentially slow things down? Yes, it can. It would be very much per use case that I would be able to determine if specific Velo code that was written is slowing down your site or not. Um, I hope that I know it's a very like not undecisive answer, but I think it's quite a complex topic, so I don't know if I can give like a clear-cut yes or no answer. But I think that it's a very valid question. Like there is basis for that question. So depending on your scenario, you might want to remove some of the code. Um, it comes down to how the code is written and how like what the code is actually doing. Like what elements it's interacting with, what actions it's taking on those elements, what like if you have code, let's say, that's querying for data or or reaching out to a third-party API and then creating a certain element on the screen above the fold based on that data, then sure, that can create a delay when your page is loading because the data needs to load. But if, for example, you're just collapsing an element as soon as the page loads, then not probably. So it's really on yeah, it's how the code is written and what the code is written about. So that's basically in a nutshell. Um, Genius Pro, here's a sample. FYI, I think it only works once per day. Sure thing, Nastaz. So I just let me remember the context of that. Add to home screen pop-up from mobile browsers. FYI, I think it only works once per day. Yeah, Genius Pro, if you can give a little more context, maybe it made sense when you actually posted that comment based on whatever I was talking about, but I don't really understand the context right now. So if you want to a sample, I think I was referring to like a sample website which has um, the thing that you asked about, which was the pop-up. You asked something about a pop-up on mobile. Yeah. To add to home screen pop-up from mobile browsers. That link does. Oh, I see. I see what the issue might be. That you might have sent a link in the chat, but I don't see that link. Um, yeah. I don't see the link in the chat, and I can't really check it on my phone right now if it does or doesn't exist. It might be like a kind of a protection that YouTube has to kind of make sure people don't spam the chat. So I can't see a URL, which yeah, I did ask you to send, so it's my bad. But uh but I appreciate you sending that. I think I think posting to the forum would be the best thing, since anyways I'd probably need to do some research that I can't do now on the live. Um, yeah, you can also email me. That works. Okay, so I think we went through at least one question per person. So I'm gonna scroll back, and if there's anybody new on the live that joined in, you can say hi. Um, and if you have any questions, I'd love to hear them. But I will go back to Jonathan's second question. How can I make a button in the repeater, like the delete button from How to Delete an Item tutorial, that directs to a form to update that specific item? Uh, that's an interesting question. So essentially, you need to capture in some way which specific item is being referenced or which specific item that button is linked to, and then pass that data to whatever form you're using to update. So let's give an example because I think that's a cool question. Yeah, two good questions today, Jonathan. So let me add in blank section, and let me add in a repeater. Let me zoom out a bit first. And then let's add in, let's say, some text. And let's add in a button. So essentially, as I understand the question, this button, when it's clicked, it takes a user to a form that allows them to update this specific item in the collection. Let's say on a new page, or it could be a lightbox, let's say. But essentially what we want to do is first let's connect this repeater to some data. So I'm going to use my example collection. So let's head into the example collection, and I'll change this to, let's say, just item 1 and item 2 and item 3. And then what I can do here, well, let me make sure we have good permissions here. Yeah, so anybody can view content, that's good. And then let's say we do a basic hookup for this repeater. So let's say this is the example repeater, and this will be our title, and this will be our update button. And then here we can write some code. So let's create a function, populate example repeater. And what this is going to do is it's going to query first the collection. So let me get rid of all this. So we'll import Wix data. And then we'll do a basic query here. So const example query result equals to await Wix data dot query. And here we need the ID of the collection. So that would be example. And then we're going to find. And then we can say const data equals to example query result dot items. And we're going to pass this data into our repeater. So we'll have here example repeater dot data equals data. So that's in terms of actually querying for the data. In addition, we need to have the on item ready for the repeater. And that's also where the button magic is going to happen. Before I do that, I'm just going to create another page here. So let's create a blank page. And we'll call this update form. And let me just see what the URL is here. So it's going to be update form. Okay. And here I'll add in some text. And this will be item ID, just for example's sake. So let's go back to our home page. And here what we're going to do is, I'll just put it all in one function for now, just to keep things simple. But we'll have also the on item ready for the repeater. So example repeater dot on item ready. And here we'll have item and item data. And first I'll say that item title dot text should be equal to item data dot title. And then we'll have also our button, oops, update button, obviously also $item. And here we have two ways that we can go. We can either use the onClick or we can use link. The advantage of using link is that you can open it in a new tab, which is cool. So let's use that. So like dot target equals blank. That will make it open in a new tab. And then we can say item update button dot link. And this I'll put it as a template literal. So here we're going to need to use the URL of this site. I'm trying to remember if I just put here. So we might be able to do this. Let's see, update form. And then I'll add in a query. So I'll have here like ID equals 2. And then we'll have here item data dot ID. Okay. And let's run this here. So populate example repeater. And I'm just going to add a little bit of code here on the update form. Obviously, I'm not going to build out a whole form now, but I'll just update this item ID to be the same ID that was led here, the same ID as the item that we clicked in the repeater, essentially. So let's import Wix location. And here we're going to say that const ID equals to Wix location frontend dot query. And then this item ID text, we'll just say item ID. So select here in the code item ID dot text equals ID. And this should probably work. The only thing that might not work is that I don't remember if you can use that kind of URL navigation inside of link. But here we have our populated repeater. And if I go ahead and I click this button, yeah, so that worked. And ID is undefined. Why is it undefined? Let's see, home. And yeah, so I did ID and this should be underscore ID. So that's the reason it was undefined. Let's update that and refresh this page. Give it another refresh and again it's undefined. Finish publishing. Let's try again. I feel like it's not actually publishing the site. Let's see. View live site. Am I doing something wrong? Still undefined. Item data underscore ID. I don't think there's anything wrong. See, I'm gonna check the comments in a second to see. Maybe you guys are screaming. It's very late here. It's 12:20 a.m. So go easy on me. Okay, um let's add in a console log, I guess. Let's do console.log item data.id. Just let's see. If there's no log, then we're not on the updated site. So yeah. Oh no, it would be only no, yeah. There's no log. Why is it not publishing? Let's change. Let me try adding in like an element or something. It's funny because I had a meeting just today with Wix, something that has to do with publishing. Maybe they're running some kind of experiment now. Okay, let's see. Yeah, like you can see that that button that I added in is not. Oh, one sec. Wix Gallery 2. I hope you guys can see this. I'm not going crazy. Uh, let me see. Let me try refreshing. Why am I being punished? Okay, so as this refreshes, let's see. I see there's a question from a new, I don't know if maybe you've been on the live the whole time, but first question. Piku GH, how to make a custom form with a drop-down menu. The menu with a form is that it doesn't scale percentage-wise. Custom form with a drop-down menu. I think I need a little more background. I mean, you can add a drop-down into a custom form. Um, when you say scale percentage-wise, does that mean that it's not responsive? Also, are you in the class in Wix Studio? Okay. Um, so the custom form, okay, let me take a look at that in a moment. But if you want to add some context in the meantime, then you can go ahead and do that. So here I'm trying to publish the site again. Let's see if I manage to publish. Yes. Okay, we're on the new version of the site now. And if I click button here, then essentially you could see the ID here and the ID here as well. And then essentially what this means is that we have access on this page where like my custom update form is to the ID of the item that we want to update. And then you can use that in order to update the correct item. If you did this with a lightbox, then you wouldn't have to have a query param. You could just pass the data directly into a lightbox, but the principle is the same. Essentially getting the ID of the item that you want to make an update to, or some identifying information about the item, and passing it on to the update form through the repeater in some way. So that's to answer Jonathan's second question. I'll try to answer PQGH's question in Wix Studio. Let me see if I can understand. So make a custom form with a drop-down menu. So let's say I add in like a container here. And I'll add in, see, a drop-down. yeah, so let's say this is the custom form. So you're saying this, because you're saying the drop down size doesn't scale. Is that the issue? Am I seeing the correct issue here? Let's see. Okay, I think that I see what you might be talking about. So let's see here. Relative width. And then, yeah. So Piku GH, let me know if that, what I did here was essentially what you were trying to do. Like this is representing the custom form. This is a drop down. And basically what I did is I changed it from fixed width to relative width. Um, Within Wix Studio, you also have the option of exposing essentially um, the full kind of previous editor X capabilities. And you can do that. Where can you do that from? There's some, oh, here. So you have like advanced CSS grid that opens up some of the previous kind of editor X stuff. And for something like this, I think it's through here, maybe like advanced sizing to turn it back into like editor X mode for those who are familiar. Um, and that could help you solve some other stuff as well. I have a question from Nick. Hello, Nick. Welcome to the live stream. Do I know when we normally use will be able to migrate our websites from EditorX to Wix Studio? I do not. Um, I know that they have announced that it will begin to be optional for some users to migrate from EditorX to Wix Studio. So I don't know what the timeline is for everybody. I don't know what the timeline is. Oh, and let me add another detail. I think specifically people who don't have a premium plan. So I think free editor X sites are the first to have the capability to migrate. Um, and I'm actually curious why they chose first the free people. I have my hunch is that like there's zero liability on their part. Like if something goes wrong with the migration and it's not a paying user, then it's less of a big deal. That's complete speculation. That was not said. Um, yeah, as David just said, like yeah, free sites, possibly because of what I said, maybe. Um, but I imagine that by the end, again, just based on the information that's been circulating, by the end of 2024, there will not be Editor X anymore. That's my guess, but it's a complete speculation. I personally think that Wix Studio is not fully baked yet. Um, I think Editor X is, while it's more complex, it's more stable. Um, so I hope it's not premature in terms of the migration. Um, but it's going in a good direction. So who knows? By the end of 2024, Wix Studio might be a viable editor. Okay, let's check out. So I see a new question from Tuka Yildirim. Is it possible to create a drop-down using a custom HTML element and read which element was selected from Wix Editor? I tried it today using Postmessage API, but it didn't work. So actually, I don't know when you joined. I don't know when you joined, but we did talk about this earlier in the live stream. And I didn't give a working example, but I did kind of go through um, like the step-by-step logic of how to set it up. And so if your question is it possible, then yes, it's possible. And I would recommend after this live stream is over, so like you'll have, or maybe, I don't know, on YouTube, can you go back and watch earlier parts of the live stream while we're in live stream? If you can, then just go back a little bit. If not, then wait till the end and then, yeah, and then check it out. But yes, it's possible, and we did talk about it. So, uh, but two people asked about it already in one live stream. I think possibly, yeah, maybe there might be a tutorial about that coming soon. But since, yeah, I actually have a lot of tutorial ideas that are for the next few months or so. But, I sometimes change the priority based on like questions that people are asking. If I see a question is asked quite frequently, then I say, okay, this is a big topic that people want to know about, so I bump it up. So definitely, um, yeah, like comments on the YouTube videos don't go unnoticed. Like don't I read every single comment on every single video, even if I don't respond or I respond just with a heart. I do read all the comments. Um, cool. Okay, so I'm gonna go back up. We have about another half an hour. So if you have any additional questions for any people who just joined in, you can feel free to ask. And I will be taking a look at some of the unanswered questions here. Um, so, okay, so here's another one about the mini cart, which I think we covered. Agron has another question. Are you planning to review websites built by your subscribers? And then on one of your videos to suggest improvements, we need your professional advice. So I have thought about it. I actually have. There is one fan that reached out and offered to kind of review a site that they built inspired by a lot of the tutorials, and it's something that might possibly happen. I've definitely thought about it of doing some kind of website review. So if you're interested, you can shoot me an email. I can't promise that it'll happen. I can't say when, but I think, yeah, it's definitely a possibility. If it's urgent, then you always have the option to schedule a consultation. We also offer like site audits as a service. Like, I mean, if what you're looking for is our advice, then there's definitely many ways to get it, except for just coming on the channel and us reviewing your site. But it is something that I've thought about, and yeah, if it's something you're interested in being featured on the channel, uh, I, like as a site review, then you can definitely shoot an email in our direction. So thank you for that question. And we have another question from Jonathan. Oops, I think I skipped the question from David. Can I add automated email to my client from a custom form with data from the form without code? That is a good question. Can I add automated email to my client from a custom form with data from the form without code? So there has to be something that's triggering the email. Um, and there has to be, assuming that, so the question is, does the email include any data from the form? So are you just triggering an email that says, we received your form submission and that's it, or are you actually sending an email that's based on the data of the form? So the answer would likely change based on which of those scenarios. If you're actually sending data from the form, I doubt there's a way to do it without code. If you're sending just an automated email, again, I'm not sure you could do it without code. You may be able to do it with less code. Essentially, let me talk about like principles here. So let's head over to the dashboard. Because I have received a similar question before, and this is not only regarding email, but it's generally regarding automations. So essentially what you're trying to do is to trigger an automation from your website without any code from like not using one of the typical actions. So like if we create a new automation and we start from scratch, then we can see here the list of triggers essentially that we have that can trigger an automation. So we have here there used to be some more here. What am I looking for here? Workflows, tasks. That's the thing. Every time I go into a page in Wix, I'm like, I'm not sure that I'm going to see the same thing that I saw yesterday. Um, and also, it could be my memory is just a little fuzzy. But there used to be an option to trigger using, I think, a webhook, or also even just like a form or something like that. Mm, let me like, yeah, I know that Wix had done like a kind of like a revamp of forms. Like there's now the old forms and there's the new forms. Um, so that might have also changed in terms of automations what can be done. Yeah, like there definitely used to be other triggers here. I don't know where the webhook trigger is that used to. Oh, here. Wix automation sending data via webhook. Yeah. Oh no. Oh, that's and it's in the actions. So sending a webhook was in the actions. Yeah. So based on what I see here, I don't think that we would be able to trigger. Okay, so I because no, I was trying to retrace my thought process because I remember talking about this specific topic with a client recently, and I just remembered what we spoke about. So doing without any code will not be possible. But if you're looking for kind of like a backdoor into automations with possibly less code than triggered emails, or if you're looking to generally trigger automations, not specifically email, with a certain amount of code, then the entry point would be workflows. That said, like because workflows does have its own API. That said, I did recently see something in the release notes about the workflow API. Um, the workflow API being, yeah, the workflow API is being depreciated. I don't know if it's going to be repeated. It's going to be replaced, sorry, by anything. So basically, to answer your question, David, I don't think there is a way that you can automate an email from a custom form without any code. That again, there might be ways to like write a little less code, but generally, I don't think there's a way. And to be honest, like I think that the code for triggered emails is not that complicated relative to some other things. So even if you're not like a coder, I wouldn't be too like don't be too afraid of trying to use triggered emails. Um, yeah, that ended up being a rather long answer, but yeah, that's generally what I would say. Um, okay, John, let me see if there are any questions here from. Thank you, Tuka. I hope I'm saying the name right. I appreciate that very much. Um, and okay, oh, I see here. Um, Hi, I'm Wix partner Yosh. I appreciate you giving a lot of useful ideas. I see some Japanese. So are you also, let's see, designer, jimu, jimusho? I don't know. Maybe are you in Japan as well? If you are, then it's very late here. I'm happy. I don't know if you were here in the beginning, but I'm also in Tokyo now, so I appreciate you also being up at this hour if you happen to be in Japan. Um, and let me go back. Let me go back. How much more time do we have? 20 minutes. 20 minutes. So if there are any last questions, I would try and get them in now. Let me make sure I think there are one or two more that I didn't tackle. Uh, let's see, another question from Jonathan or a comment. Thanks, you got the point for the HTML question. It comes from HTML template with drag and drop for galleries. I appreciate your tutorial on galleries. I just want to know if you can go further. Yes. I like to be honest, when I was planning that tutorial, I had originally, or I had explored that avenue of like a drag and drop inside of an HTML, but maybe it will be a fourth part to that galleries tutorial. I'll have to see. But it was just it. I felt like it was very niche, and I usually try and provide the pure Wix solution in my tutorials because it's most accessible to most people. Whereas once you start going into like custom HTML elements, I feel like it loses people who are coming from a purely Wix world and not really very experienced with, maybe HTML, CSS, and it's just a little more challenging to work with. So that's why I chose to build that tutorial in the way that I did. Um, it's also, sometimes a little funner to challenge yourself to solve it within Wix as opposed to like running to the easier solution, but it does also limit you because you can't really do drag and drop. You have to do other stuff. But yeah, it's just an anecdote about that specific tutorial. Let's see. I have another question from Code Crush. I want to integrate PayPal on checkout page for my client. Can you suggest how I can find code, or you can give me some overview about this? Um, so I mean, Wix does offer PayPal out of the box, so you can, I think you can set up just through your dashboard. So if you go into, let's see, payments, maybe it's payments, accept payments. Yeah, so you can connect PayPal through here. Um, I don't know what I assuming that you do know about this, but you're still asking about something else. So let me talk about another option. It's not specifically for PayPal, but it is worth talking about because it could be potentially very useful for people. I do plan on making a tutorial about it, but since it's a rather new thing that Wix introduced, I usually give Wix like a certain buffer of time after they introduce a new feature or package or something to iron out all their bugs before I create a tutorial about it. So it's for me. I have implemented this for clients, but we did encounter some challenges due to the newness of the package. So it does work, but take it with a grain of salt. And I don't think it completely works with every single payment option on the Wix website. But it is the payment provider SPI. So here, essentially, this is an SPI. So for those of you who are not familiar, the SPIs as opposed to APIs. So SPIs kind of allow you to insert custom logic within the flow of a Wix app, as opposed to Velo code, which kind of allows you to add logic on the side, let's say. So that's like a metaphor for what it does. And this specific SPI allows you to use your own payment providers with Wix apps. So let's say you go to check out on Wix. I think they have maybe a picture here that might make it a little more clear. Let's see, where's that visual here? Yeah, so let me zoom in on this just to, so basically, whoa, like when they go to, I hope you can see this, it's not very large, but essentially when they go to, let's say, check out from the store, so they'll see this custom payment provider that you added in via that third party's APIs and setting it up through the SPI, but essentially allows you to check out through a, like check out in a native Wix app through a third party SPI, through a third party, sorry, payment provider. So that is something definitely to explore if you're looking for integrating third party payment providers with Wix apps. So I know it definitely works with Wix Store, but I'm not sure it works, or at least the official answer that I got from Wix is that it doesn't work with like recurring payments. So like let's say if you're using it for Wix plans, then it might not work. But for one-time payments, it should work, or I've seen it work. So that's definitely something to look into in terms of that. Um, and I see some new questions that came in. Alejandro, how possible difficult is to create a unique client dashboard page that shows the client's relevant information regarding their properties, like incident report, invoices, notifications? So it really depends on how interactive you want the dashboard design to be. I don't think that there are any limitations in terms of data. So you can store all your data inside of Wix CMS collections, and you can pull that data into the dashboard. You can authenticate the user. So using the current member API, you can validate who your current member is, and then only pull their own personal data from the collections and display that on a dashboard page. But the main challenge you are likely to encounter is with design, because dashboard pages tend to have rather complex designs. And yeah, so if somebody comes to me and they say that they want a dashboard page in their project, like I automatically lean more towards the responsive editors. So previously Editor X and now currently Wix Studio. Um, then again, if you're not too specific, like too picky about the design, and you just really want to display the data, then you can also do that in the Wix editor as well. Um, Something that you would need to incorporate using a third party is something like charts and stuff like that. So if you just want to display like numerical data or have places where people can update things, then that's one thing. But if you want to display like more complex charts and stuff like that, so there's nothing really natively inside of Wix yet. Um, I'll give like a like I am working on a tutorial regarding like charts and graphs as well as a Wix block app for that purpose. So keep if you're interested in that, then definitely keep an ear out. But yeah, so dashboard in terms of possibility, I would say yes. Like I think it is possible. Um, if you have something specific that you're worried about, then I can try and address that specific point. But generally, I don't see an issue with having a dashboard. And new question by Yosh. When a new line is entered as a user input value, I try immediately disable the input. Um, yeah, some. 少しだけ. But a new line. So I'm not sure if you want to clarify the question, unless you were just sharing something that you do in your projects, or maybe you're asking if it's possible to do that when a new line is entered. Um, if you want to clarify that question, but yeah, I could try and answer a related question if that's the question that you're asking. So with regard to user inputs, so with input we have different events that we can listen to. So like if I select this input over here inside of the onReady function, then we have here, so we have onChange, and that's an event that will run once the change is confirmed. So somebody writes something in the input and then they, let's say, click away from the input, or they click on a button or click something else, then that will run onChange. We also have onInput, which is basically a function, a callback function that will run whenever somebody inputs something into into the input. So like they're typing, it will make it will register the event. Sorry, it's getting very late. And there also is on key press. So here there's actually an explanation. So it adds an event that runs when the cursor is inside the input element and a key is pressed, as opposed to on input, which is an event handler that runs when the input element receives input. I'm trying to remember what the nuanced difference is. So one of the differences would be in terms of the event, like on key down, on key press, that will give you information about which specific key was pressed. Like if we add in here console.log event, whereas, if we have here input dot on input, then that will give information just in general about the input. So oh wait, let me log, let's say here key press, and here let's have input. And if we take a look at this in preview mode, by the way, if anybody has like the absolute last question of the night, day, then this would be the time to ask it, because we're going to be signing off in about 5 minutes. But let's take a look at this input. So if I say, let's say hello, so here we can see all of these events firing. So for key press, we have the actual key that was pressed. So you have like H. Whereas for input, so we have here the target and we have the type. So yeah, so key press really like captures the actual key, so that's useful for that. But fundamentally, they both seem to be running whenever you actually press on a key. Maybe let's see what happens if I just like paste the word hello. Yeah, it still does key press. So nuanced difference there between key press and input. But basically, if you wanted to disable the input based on a specific input, like somebody enters a certain character that you don't want, so you could use on key press. Hello, Ryan. What's up? Now it is 5 to 1 a.m. In Tokyo. Yes, it is way past my usual bedtime. Um, yeah, so I appreciate everybody for coming and not leaving me here alone in the middle of the night. But as I was saying, yeah, so if I wanted to do something based on the input, so that's how I would do it. Um, I would kind of change uh, based on the on. Uh-oh, why? Show Ryan some love. I've actually, for those of you who are also Wix Fix fans, for those of you who don't know Ryan, um, we've been actually collaborating on some videos recently for a new um, product page, custom product page and shop page series. So actually, the very first question that we talked about in this live is very relevant to that series. So if you want to see myself on the Wix Fix, then you can go to the Wix Fix channel. And also, he has lots of other cool videos um, about lots of topics that I never get to. So definitely, you can go ahead and check out the Wix Fix. Um, and that series is still in the making. So yeah, I owe Ryan a video this week, but I was on vacation. I was on a bit of a vacation over the weekend until I got home yesterday, actually. So that's why the video hasn't come yet, Ryan, but it it will come. It will come hopefully soon. Yeah. So I hope that that little explanation about the input events helped Yosh potentially with the question, which I'm not sure I 100% understood. And with that, we have exactly 3 minutes left. So I'm just gonna take that time to thank you all for coming. Thank you, Tuka, for your contribution, for your support, and everybody for showing up and for watching all the videos on YouTube and for commenting and showing love. And it really it means a lot, and it's a lot more motivating than the small revenue stream that you get from YouTube. Um, so yeah, keep the questions coming. And tutorials, for those of you who don't know, it's Mondays and Thursdays at 9 a.m. EST, New York time. That's when I release tutorials. And you can also follow along, subscribe during the week for like fun polls. And I've also started releasing shorts. So I'm curious to see. I mean, the shorts are mostly just summaries of the actual tutorials, hopefully to kind of expose the channel to some new people who are mostly short watchers and not may not watch full-length videos or find them through full-length videos. But I hope it's not annoying like the loyal channel base. Like that's what I'm kind of worried about. So if you're finding the shorts very annoying, then then let me know. But I've started releasing some shorts as well. Um, and yeah, that's the channel. That's the Wix Wiz. And Ryan, where did you go? I went to Kanazawa and a really beautiful place called Shirakawa-go. It's like this magical like Christmas winter village where people actually live, basically. I mean, it's like a Christmas village now because it was snowing there and it's really, really beautiful, but it's also, I mean, I think any time of the year that you go would be quite nice. Um, yeah, like on the other side of Japan. So that was uh yeah, so that's all for tonight. Again, thank you all for showing up. And the next live will be at 5,000 subscribers. So if you want to do something like this again, bring all your friends and family to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.